A new parasaurolophin dinosaur has been discovered. Hey guys, welcome back to the Prehistoric Life Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Crawford, and today we're talking about one of the newest dinosaurs discovered in 2026, a dinosaur that has already begun reshaping what we know about the evolution of one of the most famous dinosaur families ever discovered. When people think about the crested duck-billed dinosaurs, they think about a couple major ones, Edmontosaurus and Parasaurolophus. That incredible hadrosaur with the long tube on the back of tube-like crest extending out the back of its skull. But what if I told you scientists have just discovered a close relative that lived before Parasaurolophus, helping bridge an important gap in the evolutionary history? Bear with me while I say this thing's name. Meet Plesiolophus I think it's Plesiolophus warnerensis. Hang on, just for toots and scoots, let's see pronunciation. I always never get the pronunciation. Plesiolophus warnerensis. So if you're curious about the pronunciation, there you go. You can pause it and look at it then. This, I'm pretty sure, is the only fossil we have of it. I think we might actually have some more. I think this is more. Some tail, it looks like. That looks like a tyrannosaur tooth. We're going to zoom in on this because I want to show this off. Oop. This newly described dinosaur comes from Alberta, Canada, and although it isn't nearly as complete as we'd like, it preserves exactly the parts paleontologists needed to answer a question that has puzzled researchers for decades. Where did the famous parasaurolophin dinosaurs come from? So if you don't know, actually I can stop sharing there. Let's see. That's a completely different tab that I don't need right now. Yep, that's the wrong thing. Bear with me for a second. I think I clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. It's going to take forever to load. But parasaurolophin dinosaurs are very interesting because they follow the hadrosaurid family. That is megaraptors. You follow hadrosaurs. You get lambeosaurine, parasaurolophin, and saurolophin. Interesting enough, parasaurolophin doesn't actually follow that, but we come from here. They come from Corthosauria, and you have them branch over here. So I don't have it on here yet, but it would probably be like here. But it's a very interesting branch because they just grow that crest for whatever reason. And it's a very interesting thing. Today we're diving into the new paper describing Plesiolophus. I'm going to call it that. what makes it unique and why this discovery matters far beyond one partial skull. So first, let's talk about the world of the late Cretaceous Alberta. Let's start by setting the stage. Around 77 to about 78 million years ago, Alberta, geez, I can't speak tonight. Alberta looked nothing like it does today. Instead of grasslands and forests covered in snow every winter, Western Canada was warm, humid, and filled with broad river systems, floodplains, swamps, and lush forests. Running through North America at the time was the Western Interior Seaway, a massive inland ocean that divided the continent into two land masses. Along the western shoreline lived one of the richest dinosaur ecosystems ever discovered. This is where giants like Albertosaurus, Centrosaurus, Chasmosaurus, Corythosaurus, Lambeosaurus, and eventually Parasaurolophus would thrive. Most of these famous fossils come from the Dinosaur Park Formation. Just beneath it lies an older rock unit called the Oldman Formation. A little on the nose with that one. Compared to Dinosaur Park, the Oldman Formation has remained surprisingly mysterious when it comes to lambeosaurine dinosaurs. Scientists knew these dinosaurs had to be there. They just hadn't like found enough diagnostic material to confidently identify them. That changed with this discovery. So let's go into this discovery. The fossil comes from the Milk River Ridge Reserve locality in southern Alberta. Unlike spectacular skeletons that fill museum halls, this fossil is modest. It consists mainly of part of the skull roof and braincase. To most people, that does not sound exciting. But to paleontologists, the braincase is one of the most important parts of the skeleton. The braincase preserves anatomical features that often remain consistent with evolutionary groups: thin ridges, openings for nerves, muscle attachment sites, and the relationship between bones can reveal where an animal belongs on the dinosaur family tree. The researchers determined that this specimen represents an adult lambeosaurine unlike any previously known from the Oldman Formation. Rather than assigning it to an existing genus, they concluded it represents an entirely new dinosaur that they named Plesiolophus. What does the name mean? Names in paleontology usually tell a story. Plesio comes from the Greek of near or close to. Lophus means crest, so near crest. So its name essentially means near crest. It's an incredibly fitting name. The authors believe that this dinosaur sits very close to the ancestry of Parasaurolophus and its relatives, but lack the gigantic tubular crest those late dinosaurs became famous for. The species name warnerensis honors Warner, the Warner area of Alberta where the fossil was discovered. Why is this important? This is where the paper gets really exciting. Parasaurolophins have always been a somewhat mysterious branch of the lambeosaurine family. We know plenty about Parasaurolophus itself. We know about several Asian relatives, but the earlier stages of that evolution have remained surprisingly poorly documented. Plesiolophus begins filling that gap. Rather than appearing suddenly with enormous crests, the evolutionary story now looks much more gradual. Scientists can see a combination of primitive traits and more advanced Parasaurolophine characteristics. It's exactly the sort of transitional anatomy paleontologists hope to find. So a different kind of crest. One of the biggest key takeaways from the paper is that Plesio here probably did not have the spectacular crest of Parasaurolophus. Instead, it appears to represent an early stage before those elaborate nasal tubes became dramatically elongated. That's important because it tells us the famous crest didn't appear all at once. Evolution likely proceeded step by step. First subtle changes, then large internal passages, and eventually the incredible structure we recognize today. So rebuilding that family tree. The researchers incorporate Plesiolophus into a large phylogenetic analysis. Phylogenetics is essentially evolutionary detective work. Scientists compare hundreds of anatomical characteristics across dozens of species. Each feature acts like a clue. When enough clues point to the same direction, that can reconstruct evolutionary I don't know where I was there. Evolutionary relationships. The analysis places Plesiolophus among the parasaurolophins, making it one of the earliest known members of the lineage and helping clarify how its famous group diversified. Why this changes Alberta's history. Perhaps the biggest implication isn't the dinosaur itself. It's what it tells us about Alberta. The Oldman Formation was once thought to have relatively little diagnostic evidence for adult lambeosaurines. Now, we know these dinosaurs were already present and evolving there. Hang on, I'm going to switch this image back over to the fossil. Y'all been staring at that family tree for quite a bit. So let's pop that fossil back up on there. We know these dinosaurs were already present. Little diagnostic evidence of adult lambeosaurines. Now we know these dinosaurs were already present and evolving there before the deposition of the young dinosaur park formation. That means the roots of Alberta's late dinosaur diversity stretches farther back than previously recognized. The ecosystem was already experimenting with evolutionary innovation that would later dominate late Cretaceous North America. We still don't know a lot. Of course, this paper also reminds us how much remains unknown. We still don't have a complete skull, a complete skeleton, or definitive evidence of the crest's exact appearance. Future discoveries may reveal Plesiolophus looked quite different than we currently imagine. That's one of the beautiful things about paleontology. Every fossil answers questions while creating entirely new ones. Now let's look at the bigger picture. I think the biggest lesson from this discovery is that evolution rarely happens in giant leaps. It happens gradually. A slight difference in different skull, a subtle altered nasal passage, a new arrangement of bones. Over millions of years, those tiny changes become one of the most recognizable dinosaurs on Earth. Without transition species like Plesiolophus, we'd be left wondering where Parasaurolophus came from. Now we have another important piece to that puzzle. Every year, a new dinosaur discovery reminds us that museum halls don't tell the complete story. There are still gaps waiting to be filled, new species waiting to be described, and fossils sitting in collections that may completely change our understanding of dinosaur evolution. Plesiolophus warnerensis may be the biggest dinosaur discovery of this year. It may not have the most complete skeleton, but sometimes the most important fossils aren't the largest. They're the ones that answer exactly the right question. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Prehistoric Life Podcast and for more discussions on the latest discoveries in paleontology, interviews with leading researchers, and deep diving into prehistoric life. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, remember, keep it prehistoric. And I hope you all have a great afternoon, morning, evening, or night. Goodbye.